So we are joined all the way from California by my dear friend Lashonda King, friend of the class. Always a pleasure to have us. She got up really early on the West Coast to join us here today, and I've got a room full here at Velma Jackson High School, and we're recording this for our friends at Rosa Scott and Ridgeland High School and Germantown High School, and for our YouTube channel. And we are in the transportation career cluster, which I know you spend a lot of time in and are very passionate about. And
Yes.
and you were have a lot of experience as a flight attendant, traveled all over the country, and we just got through talking about and watching some videos about that, and I let them know, showed them some of the different jobs that go into aviation, and that a flight attendant is not just passing out peanuts and bottled water.
No.
There's a lot that goes into it, a lot of safety training, a lot of customer service training, and
Yes.
actually a good bit of aviation training, because you're very familiar with how an airplane works. So I'll let you have the floor, and always, and again, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Well, thank you for having me as always, Mr. Pygot. I'm always overjoyed to be here. So since I was in the wrong Zoom room, do you even want me to go through the little slideshow that
Yeah,
I
absolutely,
used?
absolutely. We'd love to see it.
Okay. Let us go here and figure out a sharing. Hold on for just a second. All right, so let me get it started. Is it showing up for y'all as
Yep.
a show, or is it just showing up as just a, okay.
Just seeing you moving around.
All righty.
All right. Now,
Are
yep.
you there?
Slideshow. Yep, got it.
All right. So I love to talk about the different careers in aviation because it's just such a great field to go into. There's so many aspects of it that people don't know about. And I tend to be very passionate about highlighting people that are Black or of the African diaspora, and also women, non-binary folks, and Black folks of that background. So these are just some different pictures of people in aviation. We have Betty Coleman. What? Black pilot, first fighter jet pilot in the Air Force. You see me over there hanging out in my JetBlue uniform when I was a flight attendant. And so we'll just go forward from there. All right.
Yeah,
So
they just had the big anniversary flight for Bessie Coleman, where the entire ground crew, ticket crew, and flight crew was all Black female.
yes, I saw that. And I was really excited about it. I posted all over my Facebook page. So one of the most noticeable positions in terms of aviation outside of flight attendant and pilot are the airport operations or the customer service agents, because those are the people you see when you go check in at the ticket counter or when you get your bags, and also when you get ready to get on the plane, they help you to board. So I did want to highlight that there are many men who do this job too, because this tends to be a woman dominated position, but it's still one that many people do of all genders, and they do it well. Their job may or may not include making or confirming reservations or itineraries at the gate or at the ticket counter. They also, check the bags and make sure their pets are checked in. If there's sometimes my first time flying on an airplane ever, I flew to Mississippi. Did I tell you that?
Yeah, the first time you ever flew was to Jackson.
Yeah, so the very first time I ever flew was to Jackson, and I was 10 and I flew by myself. So I was what we call an unaccompanied minor. So they had to, tell the flight attendants, hey, you got this 10-year-old flying by herself from Los Angeles to Jackson for the very first time, and take good care of her. So, the ticket counter customer service agents make sure that all your paperwork and everything is taken care of, and also give assistance if you're traveling internationally. So outside of that, once you actually get on the plane, the first people that you're greeted by are flight attendants. And so they used to be called stewardesses because At one point, they were all women. They had to be unmarried, under 23 years old. They had to be within a certain height range between, I think, they couldn't be any taller than 5'6", and they had to be taller than 5'1". And they also had to weigh between a certain, like they had to have a certain weight threshold. And most of them were white. They didn't start getting, the first Black flight attendant was in the 60s, and they gave her a hard time, and she actually didn't become one. And this one in the middle with the afro is actually Southwest Airlines' first Black flight attendant in the 70s with her cute little afro and hot pants. In the middle is me and my classmates at JetBlue. And also some other countries' flight attendants. So I believe the one down at the bottom, I believe they're in Ethiopia. And then in the bottom, not only do flight attendants handle things on the plane, the lady with the red blazer in the cute afro is my cousin Lashonda King. She works for Southwest Airlines as a flight attendant, and she's also the second vice president of the union. So what she was doing there is actually, she helped to get a law passed in the state of Illinois. So, that whole, making a bill into a law. So she recognized that the state of Illinois did not have fair laws for aviation professionals who needed to take time off work to take care of their sick family members, so family medical leave. And so she had a husband who was sick with cancer and almost lost her job because she ran out of sick time to take care of him. So in other states, you could just take time off and take care of them and you can't lose your job. But for aviation people, specifically in Illinois, you could. And so she fought and actually helped get a law passed last year. And so I'm very proud of that. So I know people think like you said, Mr. Pagat, that flight attendants just pass out peanuts and water and soda, but we do more than that. When we go to training, I mean, it's really a lot. It's really intense. Our days can be anywhere from 8 to 12 hours of classroom training, and that's not including the studying that we need to do after class is over. Training depends on the airline and how many different types of planes they fly. So it can be anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. So yes, you do learn the customer service aspect of things, how to serve drinks, how to even make drinks, because some people don't consume alcohol. But on top of that, we have to learn how to save lives in the air. We have to learn first aid, CPR. We have to learn how to use the AED in case we need to restart someone's heart, how to help a choking baby. We need to recognize signs of what they call hypoxia, when maybe people aren't getting enough oxygen. If for some reason something hits the plane and it makes a hole in the plane, we have to learn how to navigate that and get everybody safe inside of the aircraft, how to teach them how to put on their oxygen mask, how to get everybody off the plane in 90 seconds or less in the event of an emergency. We also have to learn how to fight fires on the plane, how to handle if someone's phone or hoverboard catches on fire in the aircraft. And we also have to learn safety and self-defense. So in 9/11, those attacks were done by people hijacking the plane. And so that really changed the culture of people being protective on the plane. So I'm from Compton, and I'm not going to be funny, but I know how to defend myself if I need to. But not everybody comes from the background where they know how to nuck if you buck, So we do have to be taught different self-defense techniques and how to protect the flight deck and how to protect ourselves to make sure that we're safe and all of our customers or passengers are safe. We have to also learn every single piece of equipment, the oxygen bottles, the fire extinguishers, where to find the emergency medical kit. You have to know where everything is on the plane. Because if you think about it, if you're on a plane and you're in the back, getting ready for drink service and somebody starts to have a heart attack, you need to know immediately where to go to get your emergency equipment, to get the defibrillator, to get your gloves and get your, CPR mask. You need to just be able to go and get it. So it's a lot to learn on top of, like you said, we learn basics about aerodynamics, how the plane flies, how it lifts off, what the wings do, what the different parts of the aircraft do. That's not our job to really know that in depth, but we still do get a basic introduction to it. And
also, and especially with the flight attendant's job, really with any customer facing employee, being bilingual is invaluable.
Yeah. So that's a great point, and it's very true. So you don't have to be bilingual, but I mean, it's always a plus, right? So I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I speak enough Spanish to at least be polite, and I also speak enough Spanish to get by. So when I was working with JetBlue, we fly a lot of routes that go to the Caribbean and Latin America, a lot of Spanish-speaking countries. So or Spanish-speaking places like Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Cuba. And so when I'm working those flights, sometimes I've had unaccompanied minors who are 6 and flying by themselves back home to Dominican Republic and speak no English at all. Right. And so my little bit of Spanish, is helpful in being able to communicate with them. Also, some airlines have what they call language of destination or a language flight attendant, where they get extra pay, and they sometimes are hired specifically because they speak another language. So for JetBlue, they only had Spanish because of where they fly. But for companies like that have larger international routes like Delta, United, they have people who are on staff who speak Dutch, German, Mandarin, Japanese, Cantonese, like all these different languages. And so they actively look for people who can speak multiple languages. Because if you're going to like Cancun, it's Mexico, but it's an American destination, and people speak English most of the time because they're going on vacation. But if you're going to, you know, um, Dominican Republic, you have a lot of abuelas, which are grandmas, who are there and they don't really speak Spanish. They're not going on vacation. They may have gone to see their family in Florida, New York, see their grandbabies, and then they're going back home. So different routes have different requirements in terms of who needs to speak what languages. But on those flights, they try to have at least one person who speaks the native language of a large group of people. Anything else you want me to talk about in terms of flight attendant?
No, but all these kids complain about how they don't want to learn the other languages, but it's a very important skill to learn, especially.
Oh yeah. I mean, I understand why, some folks wouldn't really want to learn, but I think when you're young, you think about things in the context of life right now, and who the heck am I going to talk to in this language? But they're 12, 13, 14, 15 now. And the reality is there's a whole big, beautiful world and globe for them to explore and trot, right? So I actually started learning Spanish when I was 5, because I'm from an area that's so Black and brown, basically. I started being in a bilingual class when I started kindergarten at 4, but I started being in a bilingual class in kindergarten. So I'm not fluent, but I speak enough Spanish to get by without anybody else helping me. But I started learning at 4. And what I learned is that it's just nice to have that in your back pocket. I wish I understood, some other languages for when I go to different stores and salons and I hear them talking, but that's a different story. But it's definitely valuable as a person, but it also can mean more money and more opportunities in the future. One of my friends is full Black, but her godmother is Mexican, and she is fully fluent writing, reading, and speaking Spanish. Like, she is considered a native Spanish speaker, even though she's Black and her first language was English. And so she actually works for the FBI, and she's very dark complected. So people always assume that she doesn't know any Spanish. So it's been useful for her, but also she makes an extra like $20,000 or $30,000 a year for the FBI because she's fully bilingual. So while I understand not feeling like you understand the need now, it does make you more marketable in any, career space. I also have a friend who learned Spanish and she wanted to go abroad. And so she went to go teach English to Spanish speakers in Ecuador and lived there for 2 years.
Wow.
And so she got to literally like be treated like royalty because they respect their teachers a lot there. And she was teaching English, but in a Spanish speaking country. So she got to basically be on a teaching vacation for 2 years in Ecuador. So if y'all are listening, it's good to learn another language.
Yeah, and especially in the aviation industry, because obviously one of the biggest perks you get to travel. If you can speak the language, you're going to get to go there.
Yes. So when you are a language of destination flight attendant, you do tend to have a certain percentage of your routes be to that particular country or region of the world, because that's why they hired you.
Wow.
But you still get to see other stuff too. But I mean, if I hired you because you speak Chinese, I'm not going to always send you to Dominican Republic and to Japan and Korea and Switzerland. I mean, you might go to those places too, but I need you to speak Chinese. So I'm going to have to send you over there sometimes as well. So yeah. Anything else for that one for me?
No, that was good.
Okay. So one of the most notable aviation careers is being a pilot. And I'm so happy that you all were able to watch some videos about Sisters of the Sky. So that top middle group is one of the pictures of an event that Sisters of the Skies held. So when they have their gala, all of the Sisters of the Skies have to wear their uniforms, and they just look so nice. I mean, just look at them. I mean, that's literally like Black girl magic. Um, to the right is one of my friends. He actually is an Air Force pilot, and then he also works for United Airlines when he can. Down in the middle, we have an all-female Black crew. The one on the left seat is always the captain who is in command of the plane, and the one on the right is always the first officer. And they both fly the plane and do different things, but the captain is really the boss. So when you see a person who's a pilot and they have a set of wings on their chest, but they have a star above it. So if you see the sister in the middle with of the Sisters of the Sky, she has a star above hers. So that means she's a captain. So you have to be a first officer for a certain amount of years and hours, and then you have to do like more tests and more evaluation flights, and then you can become a captain. So the sister with the Delta Sigma Theta shirt on, one of my sorors, actually is one of the first people to have a private pilot license and be disabled. So she's wheelchair bound and unable to walk, but a company worked with her to get her very unique tools to be able to move the foot pedals of the plane while she's, still flying. And actually, I'm not sure if I've told you, but I actually flew a plane since the last time that.
You told us you got to
Okay.
fly the first time.
Yeah. And so I'm not sure if I shared it or not, but actually my flight instructor is paralyzed from the waist down. Wow. And so I actually got to see how those hand pedals work, because the person who flew with me for the very first time, had a disability. And the good thing about that for me was I'm a very inclusive and open person as it comes, but the reality of the matter is we all have an unconscious bias and we all have questions, right? So in my mind, I'm like, can a person who doesn't have use of their legs safely fly a plane, knowing that you have to use your feet in order to fly the plane and your hands at the same time? And so it was a way for me I felt really safe and comfortable with him. He was a brother from Oakland. And I was really excited to have that experience, because we all have ways that we think and we don't even know. And it really challenged some of the ways that I think about ability and being able to be a pilot. I can't wait to go fly some more planes. So the person on the bottom, I believe she's one of the first fighter jet pilots or bomber pilots for the military. So there's two different aspects of flying. There's fixed wing and then there's rotary wing. So fixed wing is your airplanes, and then the rotary wings are your helicopters. And so you can do that from like the charter level, meaning people pay you to do it, all the way up to the commercial level where you're transporting cargo like FedEx and UPS, or you're transporting people, for the airlines. And then there's even people who do like surveys, like they fly planes over fields like for agriculture, so that they can see how much land is being used, how much of the crop space is being used, and they can help the farmers to plan out their crop routes. There's so many ways that aviation is used, and people don't really know. And there's also people who are medevac folks. So, people who fly people out of like bad car accidents. So I know you all are in a smaller part of Mississippi, but say someone really needs some serious help and they need to go to Vanderbilt, right? To the Children's Hospital. If something's bad enough, they might send a helicopter to your high school, get a young person and then take them to Vanderbilt Children's Hospital and do that on a helicopter, So there's so many different aspects of aviation that people don't know. And it's not something that you have to do full time. You can do it full time or you can do it part time. it's very much a robust field. You can do flight training in the military as a civilian. You can go to school and learn it. They have programs at HBCUs, and then there's also some community organizations. So the Tuskegee Airmen, are very well known, but they have a nonprofit organization named after them. And they have a lot of opportunities for students to go on internships and to do different things. And actually, I was just reading that. So one of the biggest planes that they still fly right now is called the 777. So it's the Boeing 777. And actually one of the youngest people to fly one of those is from Mississippi. He's from Biloxi, and he flew one at 23. And that's really like, that's a huge plane. I mean, it holds almost 300 people. It has like the 3 seats, the 5 seats, and the 3 seats, like it's huge. And so people don't tend to fly those until like their 40s or 50s, because you have to go through all these steps, like the baby plane, the small plane, the medium plane, the large plane, and that's like the jumbo plane. So he did that by 23. You can start flight lessons like as early as 10. 11, and a lot of communities don't get that information. Thankfully, like I didn't learn until I was older, but like in Compton, we have a small airport, and they have flight lessons and youth programs there for the kids in the community, but so many people don't know about it. So hopefully,
same thing here at our local Madison airport.
yeah, so there's resources that people don't know about, and if you start early, it makes it better because it becomes like second nature. Like when I speak Spanish, I started learning when I was 5. So not that I'm fluent, but it comes kind of natural to me because I started learning it early. So, even if you're interested in things like paper airplanes, people take that for granted. But if you're one of those people that wants your paper airplane to fly farther than anybody else's, and you're folding those corners and you're trying different things, that also is showing an interest in aviation. You can like to travel, but you also have to know that you don't always get to do what you want to do in aviation. Some of the soft skills required to do these jobs are flexibility, good communication, mostly verbal communication, and also your nonverbal communication. You might not say anything to a customer, but you can't like give them a mean mug or buck up at them with no words. You still have to have a certain level of professionalism and restraint. The industry is becoming more diverse and more accepting of different types of people. I know that I identify as a queer person, and so sometimes I like ties and I like vests and I like things that are stereotypically men's clothing. So as a flight attendant, I was able to wear like a men's uniform, have my tie and my vest and me looking snazzy, and even at JetBlue, I was really excited to see some of the people who identify as women who might have been born, as men, be able to wear their dresses and wear their nail polish and just beat their face, and just look fabulous and be so happy to just exist in their own skin. So there's a lot about aviation that's changing in a good way, including a lot of programs being developed and designed specifically to diversify the field. Like United has a program called Aviate, where their goal is to, build the next generation of pilots, but their goal is that 50% of them have to be from underrepresented groups and of women. And although I did not take the opportunity, I actually was selected to be part of their very, very first class, but it costs a lot of money. And as a 40-year-old, I didn't really want to take out a lot of loans, but there are organizations like Sisters of the Skies or the Organization of Black Aviation Aerospace Professionals, so OBAP, who do offer scholarships and financial assistance to be able to make those dreams a reality. Let me see what is next. So one of my besties down at the bottom with that yellow vest on is a aircraft mechanic, a technician. So right now, she actually is one of the 0.05, so half of 1%. Half of 1% of all aircraft technicians in the country are Black women.
Wow.
So not 1%, not 10%, half of 1%. So she is one of those, but she also a couple years ago was promoted to supervisor. So not only is she an aircraft mechanic, but she actually supervises, I say guys because all of her people are guys, but she supervises teams of aircraft mechanics. And so they work on small aircraft engines, large aircraft engines. If you see me over there looking like Vanna Black from Wheel of Fortune over there with that big wheel, that is the fan blade casing for a Boeing 777. So that aircraft that I told you that 23-year-old from Mississippi flew, this is just the part that spins. That's not including what they call the cowling, which is the plastic part that covers it. That thing is huge. I mean, I'm not the tallest, but you see how small I am compared to it. The thing is about, I think, 13 or 14 feet high and wide. It's really huge. And so behind it looks like what that person is on the ladder. Like there's a lot of valves and wires. And if people are really into hands-on things and solving problems and being able to fix stuff, that really is a good career to consider.
Yeah, and this is a great area where the trades would come in handy. So if somebody doesn't want to go the
Absolutely.
4-year, if somebody did not want to do the 4-year university route,
Mm-hmm.
the associates or certification, they're always looking for good mechanics and electrical
Yes.
people, even welders to fix things.
Right.
So
Right. And so if you have those,
now or later, the trades are a very big area of aviation.
they're a really big area of everything. And so the hard part about our country is that we bias and prioritize things when everything is really important. Like it's cool that we have doctors. We need doctors, right? But what if we didn't have the radiology technicians to do the x-rays and the MRIs to give the doctors the information they need to do the surgery? It's cool that we have engineers who go to college, but what would they have to do if we didn't have mechanics to fix them, and rebuild them and stuff like that? Like everything that has a college component also has a vocational or career component. I'm a cosmetologist, right? I'm licensed as a cosmetologist and makeup artist. And yes, that's vocational, but the chemists, there are people who study chemistry who then have to make the makeup and the hair color and the relaxers and the different products that we use, so every field has a spectrum from the vocational side, to the college side, and no side is better than the other because one can't function without the other. What I always tell young people, especially Black students, is to always have a trade on top of if you go to college. When I went to college, my family didn't have a lot of money, but my trade was cosmetology. I did hair. So I was never technically a broke college student because I did my schoolwork. I was active on campus and community service, but I always had hair to do and money to help pay for my own bills as a student. And also I could use some of that money to help my family at home to pay bills that they might have been having a hard time paying. So definitely don't sleep on the trades. The good thing about what these students are experiencing now is I did not get this, like this whole introduction to trades and careers as early as like middle school and ninth grade. That is so clutch.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this,
That they
but
know.
Mississippi at Hines Community College, right down the road, they have an aeronautics program that has
Right.
their own little small airport where they work on the trade. They train the pilots, but they also work on the trades for aviation mechanics.
Yeah, and you can start that as early as 16, 17, depending on the requirements of the school, or even if they say 18, okay, like say you don't want to for sure go to college now or you don't know what you want to do, go get a trade. Find one of the trades that you'll be interested in doing, stack your money, travel, do fun things, and college isn't going anywhere. You can always go back at 30, 40, 50 if you want to.
Yeah, and a lot of these large corporations will help pay for you to go to college. If you're working for Delta, United, one of these big airlines, they have tuition assistance.
They do. They have tuition assistance, tuition reimbursement, and some of them even have partnerships with different schools like Embry-Riddle and different local, schools to help people to get further educated. So absolutely. And then, so there's the AMT and mechanic part. They actually work on the planes. And then another aspect of that is avionics. And they're the ones who work on the electronic equipment on the plane. So like the radars, for military aircraft, like your missile detection devices and, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot to do in that field too. So one of the ways that a lot of people like to kind of move into aviation is being a ground or ramp agent. Those folks are really important because they manage everything to get the planes in and out of the gates in order to get to the runway and safely go. Like if somebody's not paying attention, they can make two planes crash, and that's happened before on the ground. And that's very expensive and it's very scary, even if it happens at a slow speed. Those are two massive and huge metal things, and it's just like a loud scrape and boom and lots of billions of dollars to fix it. Most people think of ramp agents and they think of like the bags only, and that is one thing that they manage. But not only do they manage bags, sometimes they manage things that are being shipped from company to company. They call that cargo. And then there are different companies who actually manage things that some don't. So like Southwest Airlines, for example, they transport human remains, and they are the primary carrier that transports military human remains. So when a service member has been killed or they died and they need to get that service member back to their family or to where they're going to be buried in their final resting place, Southwest has a whole procedure around doing that. Like everybody has to sit on the plane while the person's remains are being removed. No one can get up. And if you look out the window, you will see the casket or the box coming, and you'll see a flag draped around it. I've actually seen it. And so it's a very humbling experience. And I'm appreciative of the carriers who do that. And I'm also appreciative of the ramp agents and the ground operations folks who take good care of the people who, die serving our country. And also they drive the planes out. They have like a tug, so a lot of people don't understand, but planes don't actually have reverses. They can only go forward. So that huge plane that weighs all those tons has to be pushed out by this little tug, and it gets drug around by this little tug. So, there's power in the little things, because I'm 5'4", but I'm really like 6'10". But so, the tugs, are what move the planes around. So there's so much. And there's also, if you look where the guy is, holding his wands to direct the plane, there's a truck down there that says LSG. That's actually the catering company. So there's also different companies that provide food. There's chefs that prepare food for that aircraft. Every aircraft has to be stocked with certain drinks, certain foods, and it varies by airline. So there are provisioning agents who also take care of all the food and drinks. So say you maybe want to be a chef or work in the food and beverage industry, that's also a good place to start too, in aviation. So literally you can do everything there. The air traffic controllers are really important. Air traffic controllers manage the skies. And as busy as we think traffic is on the ground, like when it's the freeway or the highway, the air is way worse. Like you can see the ground, and in the air, all they have to really go by is like, we call them blips, like little blips and dots on the screen. And so air traffic controllers have to manage hundreds and thousands of aircrafts, routes, if there's turbulence. So when you're flying, you fly at a certain altitude, right? So maybe like your main planes for like a Delta or Southwest or JetBlue, they fly between like 33 and 37,000 feet. Like that's their range. The smaller airplanes fly in like the 20s, and then your single engine planes, they fly like, lower than 10,000. So everybody has a kind of a place in the sky based on the size of their plane and based on where they're going. But say on the particular route at 37,000, there's a lot of turbulence. Maybe there's bad weather or something like that. Air traffic control has to really quickly, the pilot may say, hey, it's really bumpy here at 37. Can we go down to 34? That means, can we, descent to 34,000? So the air traffic control person has to look at all of the flights in the area, look at the flight path, and maybe even look at some data to see if 34,000 is even smoother, and then okay the pilot to go to that area. Planes have to be a certain distance away from each other in the sky, going sideways, going horizontal, and air traffic controllers have to really manage that. On the right is the first Black woman to be an air traffic controller. And the thing I love about her is she clearly is a boss, because she did that while having 5 children. And so I say that because there's always this misconception that people who have children, whether you have them young or whether you have them older, whether you have 1 or whether you have 7, that people can't, do certain things. If you look at the movie Hidden Figures with Katherine, Johnson, she had actually three, I think 2 or 3 daughters herself, so I just want to say that out loud, because as a woman, we often get told that we can't do stuff if something happens and we have children, either on purpose or on accident, and that's really not true. The folks that you see in those blue shirts are Caribbean women. They're part of a special program in one of the Caribbean islands that actually prepares them to be air traffic controllers there in the Caribbean. So let's see. And so another aspect that I mentioned this are engineers. So there's a variety of types of engineers. If you look up NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers, you can learn more about the different types of engineering, but the ones that are typically most relevant to aviation are aerospace engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and also EECS, which is electrical engineering and computer science, because those are the folks who, so EECS and electrical are probably putting together the computers that are like the brain of the plane, and the systems that detect all the radars and all that kind of stuff. The mechanical folks are building the engines and design, or they're designing them and prototyping them. And aerospace is kind of a mix of that, but they also have an extra attention to the laws of physics, and things that would allow the plane or the spaceship or capsule, to go into the air. We do know that we have some Black astronauts, and they're all engineers, I believe. I think that's most of their background. But, if you are interested in aviation, but from a standpoint of not wanting to be customer facing, but you want to make the planes, engineering is a good thing to look into. That is something that you do have to go to college to do. Start off with a bachelor's. Some people stay there, some people get a master's in it, or even a PhD.
Delta State of Mississippi has the aviation engineering program.
Nice. I mean, you all have a lot of, opportunities in Mississippi. And, unfortunately, Mississippi has a very strong history of, discrimination, and that still exists today. But, it's always helpful to learn what the resources are and to be able to use them. And, you're one of my favorite non-melanated people, Mr. Pygott. You're really, really an amazing ally, for our kids and for our community. And you really make it your business to use your privilege, to provide education and to really empower, the communities that I'm part of, without making us feel like you're doing us some big favor. You really have a heart of gold. And I appreciate, what you pour into your students, because they don't understand how fortunate they are. And they don't understand how good of an ally you really are to them. But so
it's never about me. I'm just trying to give them some opportunities.
I know, and that's what I love about you, and that's why I will get up at 5 o'clock. When I realized I was in the wrong one, and my invite, they had the Zoom and it said Google Meet, so I'm sitting in Google Meet like, where are they at? but yeah, so I'll get up at 3 o'clock in the morning if I needed to for you and your students. It doesn't matter what time it is. I will always get up and be here. So one of the greatest resources that you all have in the South is historically Black colleges and universities. And while all universities are cool, HBCUs provide cultural education. They provide confidence and growth in different ways of seeing yourself as great that you won't always get at a PWI, which is a predominantly white institution. And so when it comes to aviation, when I'm telling you, when I flew that plane, I was like, ooh, I can't imagine doing this for, 3,000, 4,000 more hours, 3,000, 4,000 hours, with people who aren't supportive of me. And so the Aviate program has a partnership with Delaware State, and they make sure that the students have mentors of color. They primarily try to do women, Black folks, brown folks, like they really want to make it diverse. But these are some of the HBCUs that have programs that are related to aviation. Not all of them, but these are some of the ones that I was able to find. And they're in different parts of the country. I've lived in Tennessee and I've lived in Georgia. And so those are really some nice places. But the blessing about any college, but aviation and HBCUs, is it gives you a chance to get out and see something different. You know, when I worked in Hawaii, you know, my students didn't always have the opportunity. Like some of them had never been to the other side of the island, which is 1 or 2 hours away, you know. So you can imagine that as an island person, they don't even have access to plane fares to get to go to the mainland. So that was the perspective that I never even would have gathered until I got back home to the mainland. So now I'm always telling kids on the mainland, hey, go places, go to different states, you know, go do a program for the summer in another state. Like I've lived in 12 states, and at this point, I've been in 44 states.
Wow.
Yeah, there's still, or 40, I think maybe actually 42. There's still like a group of states that I haven't gotten to yet, but that's not even because of aviation, so to speak. Maybe 30 were before that, but I just want to see different people and different stuff. And like, I love Compton, I love California, but like, you know, Mississippi has its own, you know, flair. I loved my time in Jackson. I like Tunica, you know, you know, and then seeing what it's like and how it's different in New York and how New York is different than Massachusetts. And then even being somewhere really beautiful like Colorado, and the architecture and the pizza and the food and the Black excellence in Chicago. Like I love it. So aviation has allowed me the opportunity to travel to extra places that maybe I would have never probably just gone to Vermont, right? But you know, because of being a flight attendant, we went to Vermont, and I was like, oh, we're in Vermont.
Yeah.
In Maine. I wouldn't just go to Maine, like, but
Yes.
I did, you know. So um yeah, it's been good. And it's something that you can do part-time, something you can do full-time, something you can start when you're like 18, something you can start when you're 60, 65. Some people use aviation as a retirement career. Now you can't be an airline pilot in your 60s at 65, but you can still learn to fly and get a private pilot license. You can still be a flight attendant in your 60s. Like we had some people retire from being like a police officer for NYPD for 25 years and become a flight attendant. One of my flight attendant colleagues in Los Angeles, he was a search and rescue police officer, including like he and his rescue dog received like a medal of honor because they were flown from California to help do search and rescue during 9/11, through all the devastation there. And so he was in that career field for 30 years until he was in his 50s. And then he retired from being a cop and became a flight attendant. And he's
Wow.
been a flight attendant for 7 years. One person I flew with is a medical doctor. And so on his days off, he uses his flight benefits to go donate his time and his talents with Doctors Without Borders. So he goes to countries that don't have medical resources on his days off. And he's a doctor in foreign countries. And he's also a doctor here in the States with his own practice. So there's people who are real estate agents, single parents, people who take care of their loved ones, people who are, you know, IG and TikTok stars. You know, there are so many different things that people in aviation do together. I just think it's a wonderful field for people to consider,
Yeah.
especially when they're young and kind of not sure or even thinking about they know exactly what they want to do.
Well, we're running out of time, but I do want to get to a couple questions.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
That's fine. No, that's fine. That was good stuff. These are all ninth graders. This first one's Kaylee Luckett. And she asked, "As being on the road a lot made you feel homesick if you're away from home for a long time?"
Absolutely. So you make friends in the aviation industry, but it's kind of hard because you're always gone and you always fly. Not always, but most of the time you fly with different people. So in aviation, there's no days off really. I mean, you have your own days off, but if you think about it, people fly on Christmas, New Year's, you know, Halloween. People fly every holiday. So that means people have to work every holiday. So sometimes it may mean that you may miss the big Thanksgiving dinner that happens at your aunt's house, or you can create your own family traditions by having, you know, Kwanzaa another day or something. But yeah, you spend a lot of time away from your friends and your family. But thankfully, you know, we have things like FaceTime and WhatsApp, and we have ways to keep in touch with people. And then also sometimes you get buddy passes. So you can like I'm going to fly you to meet me here, to spend some time with me. And so you do get lonely sometimes, you're gone a lot, but it also helped me to be closer to my family, because one of my sisters lives in Florida. And as a flight attendant, I can fly anywhere I want to for free. So, one day I just said, I miss my sister. And I flew to Florida and went to go see her. And one time I was in New York for work, and my sister was going to have a baby in California and her hair wasn't done. And so I flew all the way to California, braided her hair, spent some time with her, talked to the baby in her belly, and flew right back to the same day, 30 minutes after I did her hair. So everything is like one thing or another. Yes, you'll be lonely, but you'll also have more ways to be able to connect with your family and friends too.
That's awesome. This is Deadriana Sly, and she asked, what made you decide to go into this field?
The honest answer, I have worked, my first job was when I was 13. I was a camp counselor for young people when I was 13. And so I've worked a lot. And right before this, I worked in schools. And I had to do a lot of homework. When you're a teacher, you have to grade papers, you have to lesson plan, you have to talk to parents after school, you have to go to meetings. And I wanted something different. And I've always loved aviation. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do stuff like this and still talk to students and work with them. But I want a field where I can be a little bit more independent, see some things, and still do the things that I'm passionate about, like education and community service. And so becoming a flight attendant was a natural job for me to consider, because it gave me that freedom and still gave me the time to do stuff like this that I love.
That's awesome. All right, well, we are up against the bell, and we thank you so much. I mean,
I'm sorry I was late.
No, it's fine. You're one of my favorite people in the world, and you're
one of my favorite people in the world too.
But before we go, you're from Compton, California, and we all hear the rap songs about all the stuff that goes on there, and we see it on the news. But yet you become an extremely successful person. So even if these kids don't want to go into aviation, what can they do to overcome the obstacles that women are going to face and that the young Black kids are going to face in this country?
Listen, people are never going to be better to you than you need to be to yourself. First and foremost, self-confidence, self-esteem. That's really, really important. Some of you are going to be in families where people do drugs. You might not have a parent in the household. You might be in foster care. You might see drugs. You might have witnessed somebody be killed. Like I've seen a lot, but what really matters is how you take care of and carry yourself as a person. There's so much access to like mental health stuff and Black excellence stuff online and TikTok. Follow the right people in person and online. Value education, even if that's not only classroom. Value your hobbies. Be a good person. Don't be a jerk. Like, don't tease people. Don't think that like being a mean girl like Real Housewives is cute. That's not cute. Like, be a good person, take care of yourself, give more to people, like be a kind human. And don't let nobody tell you what you can't do. Like, yeah, I'm from Compton. That makes me boss. Look at Serena, look at Dr. Dre, look at Venus. Like, I'm not defined by your negative stereotypes of where I'm from. If anything, I'm better than you because I had to go through all that and still be the amazing human that I am. So that means I had to work harder. So that means I'm more qualified.
Love it. Love it.
So
well,
thank you all for having me.
The Fly Queen King, all the way from Oakland, California. We've got to find a way to see each other soon. So again,
I know. I miss you
so much.
Bye, y'all. I can't see you, but sending you love. The Compton Counselor loves you. Follow me on IG, TikTok, all the things.
Yeah. Oh, and a great, she is a great social media follow, the Compton Counselor.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day. Be excellent.
All right. See you, my friend.
Bye.